Okay, I'm doing a reaction today to a couple events. I've been trying to film videos, but they haven't come out right. I've also been time constrained over this past week. I already told the few people that watch this channel that I switched jobs and I do have a lot less time to research and plan for these videos. So you'll probably get a better video tomorrow on a number of topics. Look, the first one, and I have to confess I did neglect it compared to some other videos, is Brexit. I am genuinely proud of the British people. Even though I've never been there, I'm not a citizen. I don't know many British people in my personal life, but they struck a blow for the people of the world by saying no to multilateral dictatorships, which is what the EU is. The European Union was dreamt up back in the 50s as an eventual unification of Europe into a United States of Europe. And basically, it would have crushed the individual wills of the citizens there, because you would end up having a lot of states like Belgium, like Italy, like Romania in this case, that would probably lose their entire identity. In fact, Belgium and Spain and the United Kingdom, until it left the EU, were probably going to fall apart. I think Belgium will fall apart. It's only a matter of time. There's nothing tying together the people of Belgium between the northern part, which is Flanders and speaks Dutch, and the southern part called Wallonia, which speaks French. The only thing that keeps them together besides the European Union is the monarchy. There's also a German minority there. Do you think they really have any big Belgian identity? If you have a bilingual country that's basically split roughly 60-40, that's not an identity. There's no connection. And what's bizarre about it is that they have in Belgium something like 6 parliaments. They have the regular Belgian parliament, they have the Parliament of Flanders, they have the Parliament of Wallonia, and they have the Parliament of the German community, the French community, speaking community, and the Dutch speaking community, or Flemish speaking community, whatever you want to call it. And those who believe that these countries that have been kept together before the European Union due to, in many cases, obsolete belief system or obsolete structures are completely wrong about it. There's nothing that's going to keep them together. Scotland and the UK, they do have a separate identity. So once the United Kingdom has very little to tie it together within the EU, it's it's just going to fall. It would have fallen apart into its constituent countries. Okay, there's 4 countries in the United Kingdom. That's why it's called the United Kingdom. Okay, it was originally the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. It was formed together in the Act of Union in 1701, when the 2 monarchies of Scotland and England united, and Ireland was already screwed because their monarchy had been completely swallowed up by England. And that's when the real British identity started to come about. Before that was separate countries. And nowadays, and also remember the Welsh. The Welsh they would also secede if the United Kingdom had remained a part of Europe. So I do believe that this is the first crack in the European Union, and it's not only the first crack, it's the first of many that are already appearing and spreading. Nigel Farage, who is the person who was the architect of Brexit, who led the effort to bring it forward from the 90s when the UK was just beginning to get really, really involved in Europe, he said that he hopes to lead other countries out of the EU. And I think that rather than people thinking, oh, this is some sort of extremist, they should think about it for a second. There are countries that are on the cusp of already leaving the EU. The Dutch election this past month showed that pro-EU feelings in Holland, which is right next door to the epicenter of the EU, Belgium, are pretty much falling apart. There is more support for leaving the EU in one of the most integral constituent nations of the EU that it's hard for me to see why anybody thinks that this is a successful experiment. Who knows, in another 4 years, the Dutch might actually completely vote to leave the EU. There's no telling what's going to happen. First of all, that's a country where you have to build coalitions in order to govern. So if it remains an unstable nation, you know, there's no telling what's going to happen there. There's other countries where the urge to leave is even stronger. There's Italy, and I've said before that I believe that Italy will be the first country to ditch the EU after the British. Ireland is also seeing counterculture of people that are tired of losing out because if they were one of the more neglected parts of Europe before the EU, it hasn't gotten better because of it. You can see this what they call in England and the rest of Britain Remoaners. In Scotland, the urge to stay in the EU is going to get weaker, the weaker that the EU is, until suddenly the people who are calling for a second Scottish referendum for independence are going to suffer at the polls. They're going to see waning support for them because they're predicating their whole existence on the European Union. They want to make Scotland independent so they can lose their independence to the European Union, because that's ultimately what the European Union will do. If Scotland were to leave the United Kingdom, you'd have to think about having border protection between, I think it's called Hadrian's Wall or something, or Caesar's Wall, whatever divides. There's the border, the English-Scottish border would suddenly become a real hard border for the first time since the 17th century or whatever it was, when Scotland got conquered finally by the English. I don't think that's going to do much to help the economy of Scotland. They have to start talking about a navy. They have to start talking about building basically a full national infrastructure. And you know, let's say they do want to do that. Scotland as a whole is not nearly as strong as people think it is. Or as its own independence advocates think it is. Now, I could be wrong, and believe me, I believe in local sovereignty. If local people want to have self-determination, I don't think I'm going to stand in their way. I just know that in this case, the British Union is a lot stronger than the EU. There's not, people often say that they're going to support the EU, but the fact is that during the referendum there was almost some of the weakest support ever. There was fantastic amounts of protest, but very little amount of people going to the ballots rather, and voting to stay in the EU, especially among young people. The young people complained the most after the vote, and apparently youth voting during that election was something around 36%. I could find the figure sometime. There's not going to be a lot of links in this video. I'm pressed for time. If anybody has a question about it, post a comment. The other topic, I'm not going to stay long, is the Flynn issue. Michael Flynn has asked for immunity in order to testify before Congress and to the FBI. And people are taking this as an admission of guilt. Okay, let's play that game. If that's an admission of guilt, why is it that something like 5 staffers, including the IT staff of Hillary Clinton at the State Department, had to take immunity deals? And one of them was found in contempt of Congress for not appearing at a subpoena. Is that an admission of guilt? You know, none of those people were indicted. So it's been a year almost. The same story happened back then. They took immunity deals. Some of them didn't testify, and then nothing happened. The FBI recommended no investigation. So in order for you to somehow reason that Michael Flynn asking for an immunity deal, an immunity agreement with the Justice Department, and not getting it. By the way, he did not get it. They declined. I fail to see how that's a smoking gun. The other issue is that the immunity deal may imply that he's going to testify, and that in the course of his testimony he would reveal certain things that he did that were illegal, that are not relevant to this investigation with Russia. It could be, for example, that he did. Let's speculate here. We could just, I'm admitting right now that I'm speculating. Okay. If he was to take an immunity deal, who's to say that a lot of his business dealings with Russia were just that, business dealings, and we know that a lot of our trade, or a lot of our laws in terms of business laws, in terms of corporate laws with Russia, are dramatically different from Russia's. So, for example, if he were to reveal that he was doing insider trading or some sort of other illegal activity, illegal commercial activity during the course of this investigation, if that's what he was going to reveal, then that would be completely irrelevant to what Donald Trump, what is it being accused of. Now, you could be right. You could be right, absolutely. There's an issue here where, there's a person who was very close to the Trump administration who now apparently is feeling the pressure to ask for immunity. But remember, this is one of the reasons that it's hard for me to agree with that. Michael Flynn was going to be subpoenaed to speak before Congress and speak to the FBI anyway. Okay? Do you expect, if there was any wrongdoing, or if there was not any wrongdoing, do you expect him to just walk in there and tell him everything to their heart's content and not reveal anything that's going to incriminate him? No. This is a person who will, he's going to testify before Congress. He could reveal things that are in his personal business dealings that could be incriminating, and he doesn't want to get burned for that. And that's an issue of his ethics, or his, that's something we can, like I said, we can only speculate on that right now. I don't think that you can go and categorically say that he's going to be the smoking gun, because if it was that, then I do believe that the NSA or the CIA would have produced something, or would have issued a warrant to arrest him already. This is not something that they can. That Aldrich Ames, for example, was a senior CIA agent, or, well, he wasn't that senior, but he was a lifelong CIA agent, and he was arrested on the spot for spying for Russia. There's a woman who, and let me pull that up. There's this woman. Okay, here we go. This is from Foreign Policy magazine, a magazine that's actually pretty bad. It's basically a shill for globalists and Clinton administration. Basically, they hired the entire Clinton administration State Department or National Security staff, the entire Obama administration security staff last month, in order to be the shadow State Department for against Donald Trump. That's what's so ironic, that they hire these dudes. But anyway, it says a State Department official with a top secret clearance and deployments to sensitive postings abroad was charged concealing contact with Chinese intelligence agents, the Department of Justice announced Wednesday evening. Candace Marie Claiborne, a State Department employee for nearly 2 decades, allegedly failed to report her contacts with Chinese foreign intelligence agents who provided her with thousands of dollars of gifts and benefits. And then it goes on. It says the Department of Justice said the Chinese government asked her to provide internal U.S. government analyses on a... Anyway, so when something like this happens, they do arrest the person. And in this case, this woman, this isn't receiving any attention. Why? Because this is an Obama administration official who, she was doing the dirty with these Chinese, getting money for our state secrets. And if the same thing had been happening with Mark Flynn, I can guarantee you that he would not be in the position he is, where he's able to negotiate for an immunity agreement with the FBI, and they're going to turn him down, because if they would have accepted it, that would have really implied, that's an implication. It could go either way. It could mean A, that he has information, but he would not want to incriminate himself, or B, he has information that may implicate somebody higher up, let's say Donald Trump or Mike Pence or whoever it is, and they would really want that information so much that they would give him immunity from prosecution. And that's really this. Look, I don't have a law degree, and I don't care, because it's basic strategy. If you know this, you do not necessarily admit guilt by taking an immunity agreement. It's just a lot of times when the FBI would do these, everybody likes these mafia films or whatever, Sopranos. A lot of these people who get busted for and they end up turning state's evidence. Let's say I saw a murder by Rocco, whatever his name is, Rocco Ballatieri. I saw Rocco murder Tony. I'm being very stereotypical here, but let's say this happened, and I later get caught stealing cars. All I have to do is say, wait, I know that there's this murder that went down last week, and I know you guys are looking for Rocco. And I can testify. That's the way you get people to say, okay, so then they would offer me immunity. And the fact that they turned down an immunity request may suggest that they don't have anything to get from it. If they want Donald Trump, they should give him an immunity agreement. Now, the fact that they did give immunity agreements to the Clinton staff, there's so many of them that it should imply what were they doing that they needed immunity agreements. That what they did was they destroyed state records. It was pretty obvious what they did. They destroyed, using a program called BleachBit, emails from a private server. That's what they did. In fact, I don't think that they necessarily worked at the State Department. They were like private contractors for the Clintons. So this is all a bunch of bullshit. And I think that the state of journalism today, it shows that there's a complete ignorance to what really is the trajectory of the trajectory of events, because they really think that they can control people's opinions so much that they're going to drive something that's out of their control into being into having an outcome like they want. And once look, this woman who was on TV, her name's Evelyn Farkas. What a disgrace of a person, going on TV saying, yeah, we spread the information among the departments because we knew that we needed to get it out and whatever. And now she's trying to say, oh, I didn't know what they were doing and everything. I'm just trying to describe the motivations. No, in the video you can clearly say that she was talking to people about it. She was in contact with people from her department that she worked at until 2015. She knew about this. She knew about she was in contact with these people and was aware that this was going on, if not encouraging it. And if she was, and it could be a crime either way. The first would be that she's not revealing this leaker. The second would be that she's encouraging leakers, which is even worse. Okay? And the fact that she would know that there's a wiretap, a confidential wiretap, is also probably, that's also a crime. If there's a confidential wiretap, let's say an NSA wiretap that's not subject to public record or something, but it is still classified, that could also be a crime. Now, we'll talk about this later. I do have to go. I think that we're really seeing, as much as Trump has angered me over the past few weeks, we're seeing that the Democrats are in some sort of a race towards self-destruction with him. Which one's going to fuck up worse? It's either them or him, and they're really sprinting for the finish line. Anyway, this is Ramon with Bold Like a Leopard. Have a great Friday evening, good Shabbos, and we'll see you tomorrow night. This is Ramon with Bold Like a Leopard again, sorry. And we'll see you around the bend.